Okay, moving right along. This is video number 7. Yeah, so video number 7. I wanted to focus in on Patrick and everybody's Eskimo brother. So, Patrick usually has gone very boomer bust in the past. This one was more of a classic build, the kind of build I'm really comfortable with, the classic running back build. But yeah, we just did Ryan, as we saw with the two superstar wide receivers, and now we have Patrick with the two superstar running backs. So let's kind of dig into it. So first one, my number one target going into this season, someone who I'm super duper high on, Bijan Robinson, running back Atlanta. So things you didn't know: Atlanta had the most rushes last year in the NFL. Atlanta was the most efficient rushing attack last year in the NFL. Atlanta has a top 5 rushing offensive line in the NFL. Atlanta lost 8 games by under a touchdown or less. So they were a very, very competitive team. That was with basically Marcus Mariota and friends at quarterback. Now it's Desmond Ridder. Do I think Desmond Ridder's all that good? No. Do I think they underutilize Kyle Pitts? Yes. Do I think they underutilize Drake London? Yes. However, all of those things lead me to believe this. Last year, Tyler Algier was one of the most efficient rushers in the NFL, and he had over 1,000 yards as a rookie. And now we drafted Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall, who I think is the third best running back prospect after Saquon Barkley and Adrian Peterson since LaDainian Tomlinson in the Michael Vick draft. That's a long time ago. That's 2001. So he's special. Bijan can do it all. Is taking a running back that high in the first round advisable? No. I don't think it's a good idea. Did it work for the Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott? No. Did it work for the Giants and Saquon Barkley? No. Did it work for the Jaguars and Leonard Fournette? No. Did it work for the Panthers and freaking Christian McCaffrey? No. Did it work for the Browns and Trent Richardson? No. Take quarterbacks high. However, for fantasy purposes, Robinson is special. He forces tackles. He's elite. He's an elite pass catcher. He's got good long speed. I won't say he's fast. He runs a 4.46 40-yard dash, so good long speed. But what he's really good, he's incredible vision, really, really great motor. And when you watch him, I think there was a play. I showed Mac and Stefan the week before the draft. Show him on Twitter. There was a play against Texas Tech where it's just a quick little 10-yard rush up the middle where he shifts and moves through basically all of this traffic to get to the end zone. And there's only a handful of guys in the NFL like Barkley or Eckler who have that kind of phone booth movement and agility to make the kind of cuts, the one-step cuts he was making. And he's just an incredible player, and I really wanted him on my team. And he went for more than I was hoping to pay at 73. So, yeah, I think 1,200 yards rushing, another 400 yards receiving, 10 to 12 touchdowns kind of year. And if Atlanta surprises and does really well, he could be the number one back in fantasy football. He's that good. He's just excellent. And everything about Atlanta's offense screams feed him. So am I worried about Tyler Algier stealing some carries? I mean, yeah, and Cordell Patterson's still there, yeah. But Bijan is the guy. And, we've said this about, they underutilize Kyle Pitts and they underutilize Drake London. They got to win. This year. There's no more waiting anymore. Either Arthur Smith wins this year or everyone's getting fired. So I think they're building their offense purposefully around this kid, and I think he's got the juice. So I love Bijan. I think 73 is very, very rich, but considering I spent 57 on Jonathan Taylor and he is now gone for 4 games, and I spent another 25 on Alvin Kamara, and he's gone 3 games. I would rather have Bijan by a lot, not a little, by a lot. So 16th nomination, Saquon Barkley, 68. So Barkley is the classic Jekyll and Hyde. There are times where he has been injured up until last year where he's not very efficient, he gets a lot of volume, and then he breaks a big run and makes everything fine. It's a home run hitter. So last year, he really, really broke out. Ryan bet on him. He only paid 45, and everyone was just like, oh my gosh, here we go, Ryan betting on Barkley. But he stayed healthy the whole year. He got 1,300 yards, another 350 receiving. So he was really, really good. I don't think he'll get quite that much because I think Dable's going to try. I don't know if he's going to succeed, but he's going to try and get Daniel Jones to be a better passer and get Darren Waller more involved. I think his efficiency was better. I think being with a good coach and offensive coordinator who know how to utilize him makes him really good. I think he'll only get maybe 1,000 yards rushing, but he'll get over 400 yards receiving. So a slight step back, maybe 200 yards less total, but still, he'll get his 10 touchdowns. He'll be the center point of the offense. He's a strong top 5 running back either way. Another running back who has the possibility and the talent of being the number 1 fantasy running back in football. So, yeah, you paid format costs, like I said before, like Saquon. As long as he stays healthy, there are a lot of teams he's on their do not draft list, but he was on yours and you went all in, and I respect that. So we waited a little bit. 47th nomination, Tyler Lockett, $16, our top receiver. So I think you got him at a discount. I think he was undervalued last year. He had a top 10, he was outside the top 10. He was 13th best receiver in fantasy. And I mean, what did we pay? We paid $16. If Geno Smith is real, if Geno Smith does what he did last year, then absolutely he's worth it. That's 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to get that because we did draft Jackson, Smith, and Jigba in the first round, and I think he's going to cut into some of that work. But he's a high floor guy. He's always been a top 30 receiver. I think he's a wide receiver 3 kind of guy, so top 30-ish receivers. The way I look at tiers is wide receiver 3 is top 30, wide receiver 2 is top 20, wide receiver 1 is top 10, so yeah. So wide receiver 3-ish, but he was excellent last year, and if he can do it again, then he'll be a high-end wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 1. And $16, that's a steal. So after that, another big unknown, DeAndre Hopkins. So the good and the bad. We've seen Hopkins be a superstar. We saw him be a superstar in Houston with no one really good to throw him the ball. We saw him be a superstar in Arizona with Kyler Murray. Now he's in Tennessee. He's missed over 15 games the last 2 years. Excuse me. So we're betting more on name than we are on production. However, even at 31, even in a run-heavy scheme, we did see Tennessee be able to feed A.J. Brown. Treylon Burks was to be honest, Treylon Burks wasn't very good last year. They just couldn't deal with all of the coverage. I think if Tannehill's able to feed Hopkins and he can get around his 30% target share, which is a huge number, then he's a top 10 receiver. And getting him for $14 is just wild, even if it's more name than production the last couple of years. The upside's so stupid high, it doesn't really matter to me. So I think he's a wide receiver. I think he's in the wide receiver 2 mix. I think he's a borderline wide receiver 1, kind of like Lockett. So we just spent $30 on 2 really good receivers, and we saved money in that sense. So we're doing a real good job. Really strong top 4 core, like really, really strong. After that, $4, Mike Williams. Another kind of receiver I wish was on my team. So I like to call him Mr. Boomer Bust. There are the weeks where Mike Williams will catch that 80-yard touchdown bomb, and it will make your week. And there are weeks where he will literally not catch anything, and it'll kill your team. He's Mr. Boomer Bust. I think he only played like 11 games last year. So when he played, he was like a top 15 receiver. I don't know how much I believe that, because there were some games he was huge and then other games where he was just like, nah. So he's missed 6 games the last 3 years, so 2 each year, but he's also left 6 games early the last 3 years as well. I don't know if we can count on him to be healthy the whole season. I think Quentin Johnston's going to kind of come to the workload, but I also think bringing Kellen Moore over means that they're going to throw the ball more with Justin Herbert. He's kind of like Lockett, only much more boomer bust. Again, 1,000 yards, maybe 7 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns. I really don't know. Really good player. Again, just has to stay healthy. I think this is an absolute... It's crazy you were able to build like this kind of team this way. $34 on 3 receivers who would all be the number 1 receiver, well, probably number 2 receiver on my team, and all are top 30 receivers. That's crazy. This is a crazy deep top 5. Like, we've spent a lot of money to do it, so it's going to get rough towards the end, but crazy deep top 5. After that, I guess we're kind of locking up. Oh, what happens if Lockett takes a step back? Well, I mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba before. You drafted him. So, rookie, he has a hurt wrist. Seattle took him in the first round out of Ohio State, so another Ohio State guy. He had over 1,600 yards, I want to say 2 years ago, and a huge Rose Bowl game, if I'm not mistaken. But he didn't play all that much last year. So I think he's a great fit at the slot. Well, he's probably playing number 2 because Lockett plays the slot. I think getting to learn next to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf is really, really going to benefit him. I don't really know what to make of him because I think Lockett, for now, is still excellent, and I think DK Metcalf's excellent. I think Lockett's very good. Lockett's the route runner, the technician, and Metcalf's just the athlete. And Njigba is just like he's a young guy. He's a very good player, but I don't know where exactly he fits. I guess he's mostly a flex for now. We're trying to wait and see what happens with the Seattle offense if they continue to be as pass heavy as they were. How much usage does he cut into Lockett and Metcalf? But I think at the end of the day, I like the upside. This is one of the few times where I'm comfortable taking a receiver on the same team as a receiver I previously had, just because like they're so different. Like Lockett is the consistent guy who's always been very good, and Jackson Smith and Jigba is kind of a dice roll, rookie dice roll. So getting one of the rookie receivers, considering Justin was eating all of them up, getting one of them, even if he's hurt, his wrist injury shouldn't keep him out too long. I don't mind it. I think it's a good dice roll just to see if maybe Lockett takes a step back. You instantly feel that. Good on you. So after that, Marquise Brown, $3, Arizona. So I mentioned this before in Ryan's video. I'm going to say it again. I do not believe in Arizona. I think they're 100% tanking. I do not care who the quarterback is. That being said, someone has to get the ball. There's going to be games where Arizona's down like 30 points because the defense is trash, and they're going to throw the ball. So Brown's clearly the number 1 with Hopkins gone now. So he's going to get like 11 targets a game. If he can catch half of them, he's viable. I think he'll get his 1,000 yards. I don't think he'll get a lot of touchdowns. If he's lucky, maybe like 3. But that makes him like a viable wide receiver 3 kind of player. And now, literally, behind Bijan, Saquon, Lockett, Hopkins, Mike Williams, and Brown, we've literally filled basically our starting lineup. We just need a quarterback and the defense players. But with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba kind of as the breaking case of glass, it's really good core. Like really, really deep, good core. Like it a lot. After that, we took Dallas Goedert, nomination 113, $2. So I talked about this before. There's maybe 8 tight ends who are fantasy relevant, and because Lauren's team took 7 tight ends this year, there's not a lot of, there's going to be a lot of tight ends that I think ought to be free agents. I think Goddard's got the possibility to be a viable option, mostly because the Eagles are so excellent. Obviously, he's behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but I think their third wide receiver is like Quiz Watkins. And then they're doing a committee at running back with Swift and Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell. So I think Goddard can kind of slip in there. Brown does have some injury issues, and I don't think there's Watkins is really all that great as a slot receiver. So if he can stay healthy, the Eagles are a high-scoring enough offense to make him viable. I think I'd hang on to him and just see what he can average. But if he gives you 10 points a game, then, he's a starter. I think he's one of the top tight ends in fantasy, if I've mentioned. So we already mentioned Cole Kmet was 8, Andrews 2, Kelsey's 1, Waller's 3, Goddard is 5. So he's one of the viable, he's one of the viable, 6. He's more like 6. But he's still one of the viable tight ends in fantasy football. So I don't mind it, especially because it's $2. Late in the draft, you're just trying to get players who can play for you at some point. So not bad at all. We took Daniel Jones. We've since cut Daniel Jones. We took Daniel Jones as our quarterback, but we cut him. And now we have Matt Breida. I'll talk briefly about Breida. Again, he's the handcuff to Saquon, so that makes perfect sense. He's got the job all alone. And there's not too much. I mean, Breida's a fast guy. He was at San Francisco for a time. He was the starter. He's not terribly impressive, but, breaking case of glass. You got to start somebody. Saquon's out. What do we do? There you go. Makes sense. 125, Odell Beckham Jr. for 2. I was hoping to get Odell. I don't know what to make of the Ravens offense. I have Rashad Bateman personally. I really like Zay Flowers. Odell's always been a favorite of mine. So, what are we doing? He's coming off the ACL injury that he had in the Super Bowl with the Rams over a year ago. And he hasn't exactly been healthy the entire time. When he was with the Rams, going back 2 years ago, for the back end of that season, because he got cut by Cleveland, he was a top 25-ish receiver. So he was pretty good when he was with the Rams. But that was in a pass-heavy offense. I don't know what Baltimore's offense. I think they're going to be more run-heavy still, even with Todd Monken. But if Beckham's the number 1 receiver, we still don't really know who the number 1 receiver is. But if it's Beckham, then it works out. And I think he can be genuinely excellent. It's really risky because we don't know. I don't know how healthy he is. I don't know what his burst looks like. I don't know how much separation he can get. There's a lot of things I don't know. But what I do know is they're paying him to be the number 1. And I do know he's fully healthy off that ACL. So if he's the number 1, we got him for $2. Awesome. We're doing a great job. If he's not and it doesn't work out, we can just cut him and move on. I think for now, I'm going to kind of take the middle road and say 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. But I don't know what the offense the Ravens are a mystery. It's a mystery what that passing offense will look like. Is Odell passing Mark Andrews? Are we becoming pass heavy? How much are we running the ball? Do we use a lot of option? Does it look like what we did at Georgia? What does the offense look like? So, any way you slice it, somebody on that Ravens wide receiving core among Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman, I think will be very good. I just don't know which of the three it will be. I really like Zay Flowers. I really like Odell. I'm not as high on Bateman. I got Bateman for cheap. So if it is Odell, then, great for Patrick. That's another really good receiver he got. After that, 128 nomination, $2, Treylon Burks, who we have already traded. So I won't talk too much about Burks because we've already moved him for Tyler Algier. Why is Algier important? Well, he got over 200 carries last year. He was on the best rushing offense in the league, which is Atlanta. He got over 1,000 yards. He looked like a gem. You could have a viable starting running back. And then Atlanta picked Bijan, and now Algier is just the handcuff. I think it's a run-heavy offense. He'll still get some looks, but kind of like, if Bijan is Derrick Henry, he's not really Derrick Henry, that big, strong type, but if he's getting the workload of Derrick Henry, then Algier's just the handcuff. If Algier's kind of getting like 8 to 10 touches a game and Bijan's getting 15 to 20, then it works. Either way, it makes sense to me to pick up Algier and make that trade because you didn't really need Treylon Burks anyway because you already own Hopkins. So, yeah, good for you for getting Breida and Algier to back up Bijan and Saquon. That really, really shores up your running back room. I wish more teams, cough Stefan, cough Charlie, cough Eileen, cough Ryan, would invest in some handcuffs on their players that are running backs on their team. But, I can't make people do things that I think is smart. So good on you for doing the smart thing and protecting your greatest assets. Nomination 137, Jacoby Myers, $1. This was a kind of quiet sleeper. Quiet sleeper. Signed by the Raiders. He's replacing Darren Waller. Josh McDaniels is his old offensive coordinator. They paid him a pretty penny, and they're looking for someone to work behind Devontae. Jimmy Garoppolo is really, really conservative, but I think he's a viable flex option. I think that's really good depth for you getting Myers. Getting him, I think you were the first team to finish. Yeah, you were the first team to finish drafting, so, we'll get to your last pick, who's your quarterback. But because you took everything else and you didn't really invest in, getting extra running backs, your team is really, really deep, and now even better because you actually have the handcuffs to your running backs. You're safe in a sense. You're kind of insulated to be able to just see how good your team is. And I think Myers is a good player, and he's a flex-worthy wide receiver. It's wild to me that we're talking like Patrick has, I have Smith and Jigba, and I have Dallas Goedert, and I have Odell Beckham Jr., and I have Jacoby Myers. Those 4 guys would all be starters on my team. That's crazy. And they're not even getting into your lineup because your lineup's so deep. So good on you for building a really stupid deep team. But it all comes down to your quarterback. As I mentioned before, you let go of Daniel Jones, so you took at 123 because he didn't have much money. You got Jones for $1. You cut him. I agree with cutting him because your quarterback's Tua. Tua finally took the leap last year. I always thought in the Joe Burrow draft that Tua was better than Justin Herbert. Now, to this point, Herbert has been better than Tua. Last year when Tua was healthy, he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. However, he was not healthy the entire year. You all remember the concussions. So, what does that all mean? Well, this is what it means. I think if Tua is healthy, then he's an elite quarterback. The question becomes, can he be healthy? The answer is, I don't know. The offense is Mike McDaniels, who learned under Kyle Shanahan, so we're talking like Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, but Tua has more talent than either of those players. And Trey Lance, who has more talent than the other 3 of them, but isn't as accurate as any of them. So, he's got Tyreek Hill, he's got Jalen Waddle, he's got Raheem Mostert, he's got Jeff Wilson Jr., he's got Cedric Wilson. The offensive line's not great, that's a worry, but I think we'll just say he's around the Dak Prescott, the Kirk Cousins, the Russell Wilson. I think he's better than Wilson, but he's around that area of back-end starter. He's just got to be, because the rest of the team is great, he's just got to be like a top 12 starting quarterback to justify being a starter in our league. And he's got the possibility, the upside, to be better than that. He's playing for a contract. Like, if he's not, like, Herbert's getting paid, Joe Burrow's getting paid, Tua's got to stay healthy and have a big year. And if he does, he will get paid. He will get taken care of. Is he going to? I don't know. And that's the rub. But I think for now, with how deep the rest of the team is, how much depth there is, I actually like having him as my quarterback, especially because we were paying at cost for most quarterbacks, and I definitely like him for some of the quarterbacks, like Watson went for 3, and Kirk Cousins, I think, went for 2, and Dak went for 3. I would take Tua, just based off the upside over them for that price. So, all in all, bringing it all back, what do we think? Well, I mean, we don't have any other running backs other than the Atlanta running backs with Bijan and the New York running backs with Barkley. But it's kind of worked because we have the handcuffs and we're really deep at receiver. This will sound kind of strange, but in a sense, if Tua is healthy, this is probably one of the best drafted teams Patrick's ever had. The team's just, like, usually Patrick's gone, like, very boom or bust, or Patrick's just taken a lot of, like, players that we don't know too much about, and then the team's kind of fallen apart or gotten hurt. This is, like, a very, very high floor team. Lockett's super safe. Oh no, Barkley's hurt, I put in Breida. Oh no, Bijan's hurt, I put in Algier. Hopkins has been great for a decade now. Mike Williams can, again, Lockett missed time last year. Hopkins missed time last year. Mike Williams missed time last year. Marquise Brown missed time last year. But even if all of that happens, Odell Beckham obviously missed the whole year. Even if all that happens, he has so much depth to be able to just plug holes wherever that it doesn't really matter. The thing that really matters is the quarterback, and if Tua's not the guy, then you'll know after like 3 or 4 games, and you can just cut him and grab somebody. You don't need like the best guy, just somebody, because someone on free agency will pop. I got Trey Lance last year. Geno Smith popped last year. So having Tua be it isn't bad at all, but this is a really, really good team. I've given for other people championship aspirations. I don't know if I'll give you championship aspirations, but this is a contender for a title kind of team. Everywhere, like, it's so deep at receiver, even with all the injury questions, it doesn't really matter. And then I love the running backs, specifically for the upside. But, gosh, like, can you imagine if, like, Bijan is the number 1 fantasy running back and Barkley's the number 2? Can you imagine that? Or let's say Tua's, like, a top 5 quarterback. Like, the teams, like, I really, really like Justin's upside. And I think this is the team kind of, like, around that level of outcomes, we'll call it. So I really like this team. This is one of my favorite teams. This is my second favorite team after Justin. It's sneaky good. It's underrated. I don't think people during the draft saw that, but it's really deep, and now that you actually have the freaking handcuffs to your guys, it makes it just like, okay, this is who I'm ride or dying with, and you're protected for injury. So I don't know if you will be able to navigate it to a title. You've never been to a finals before, so I won't push that on you. But kind of like Justin, I think, again, I guess I will say it, I guess there are championship aspirations for this team because the team really is that good. If you can navigate it right and barring injury, this team will compete for a title. This team is better than over half the league. I said Mac is a top 5 team, roughly. I said Sarah's around the top 5. I think you're better than them. I think Robbie is a top, like, 3 team. I think you're around there. So I'm saying you're like a top 3 team, Patrick. I think you're maybe like the 3rd best or so. It's a really good team. Really, really deep. I really like it. Really interesting build, getting 2 high-end running backs and then totally ignoring it. and then already just like quickly getting the handcuffs. So good on you for that. Really fun way to try it. It makes me kind of jealous. But yeah, please take care of Bijan, and I wish you luck because like this might be your best drafted team. Oh yeah, grade. I gave Justin like a A minus. I'll give you a B plus. It's just there's so much good like upside with this team that it's kind of scary to consider. And even if you don't reach the ceiling, it's okay because you have so much floor even with it. So just keep an eye on Tua. But other than that, yeah, just manage the team and you will go places. So good on you, Patrick. Very, very good draft. I'm proud of you.